Hello, my monstrosities. Hello once again. Today I bring to you something absolutely idiotic that you can do. I was looking at the only non-imperial armor backslash Forge World transport that we have over here in Tyranids. That would be ba da da the Tyrannocyte, which is a way too expensive drop pod that doesn't give you anything worth its squeeze. Until today. And I'll be honest, it's not worth the squeeze either. This is just something that, if you are down to clown, you can get around with this. The Tyrannocyte has Deep Strike, Deadly Demise D3, Aerial Seeding. Keep this in mind for later, but keep this in mind. Aerial Seeding. This model must start the battle in reserve, but neither it nor any units embarked within it are counted towards any limits placed on the maximum number of reserves units you can start the battle with. This model can be set up in the reinforcement step of your first, second, or third movement phase, regardless of any mission rules. Any units embarked within this model must immediately disembark after it has been set up on the battlefield, and they must be set up more than 9 inches away from all enemy models. After this model has been set up, on the battlefield, no units can embark within it. And as we know, if you don't have assault ramp, well, you're not really doing anything else after this. So the Tyrannocyte, with all that said and done, what are we doing with this? As a transport, its capacity is 20 infantry models, or 1 Tyranid monster model with a wounds characteristic of 12 or less. Each infantry model with a wounds characteristic of more than 1 takes up the space of 3 models. That means if it has more than 1 wound as infantry, the most models you can get in this thing is 6. So, let's talk about when we've ever seen this applied this edition. Not to great effect, but to any effect at all. The Tyrannocyte, Zoanthropes. Now comes the problem, okay? So Zoanthropes both provided synapse, and it was a way to get our fragile friends somewhere to shoot something, probably T12-ish, right? So you could get the last cannon in. Because that's what Zoe's did before our Tyrannofex, you know, got that little buff. However, now, if you bring Zoanthropes without a Neurotyrant, you've probably lost your mind. Now, that's not to say that there's never an application for it, but when you have something to immediately give them +1 to hit, and possibly +1 to wound, it is a no-brainer that you just slap on the Neurotyrant on the Zoanthropes, especially when you're paying 105 compared to 105, right? So now that 1 takes him out because you can only put 1, and that says or. It doesn't say and or. That would be a nice little change here to the Tyrannocyte. No, it says one or the other. So while you could take a Neurotyrant who is a monster, you cannot take Zoanthropes and vice versa. If you reach max Zoanthropes or any Zoanthropes, you cannot mix with a Neurotyrant. What does that have to do with jack shit and probably what I've put the title backslash thumbnail of? Well, I've talked about several times how the Neurotyrant, Zoanthropes, i.e. the think tank, one of my favorite things to do with it is fire Overwatch. And yeah, I think that's just a nice stratagem when you have this much output. Enter the next step of this, the Sporocyst. Another model that is not worth this cost, if we're, like, letting truth be told. But we've seen the Sporocyst this edition. We've seen people bring it as a tech piece in Assimilation Swarm. So it's not like it's completely unheard of, but it's not the best thing to do. Now, if you do this in Assimilation Swarm, power to you, but I have a couple of ideas for where we're going with this. The Sporocyst has a ranged weapon profile of 24 inches, 10 attacks, hidden on 4s, strength 5, AP -1, damage 2. You already know the mucilid spore situation. Once returning your shooting phase, when selected to shoot, one unit with this ability can instead fire a spore wholly within 18 inches and 9 inches, at least 9 inches horizontally away from enemy units. And then, if you give up your shooting, right, you have the option. Well, you don't even have to do this, you just have this option in the back pocket. Hive defenses. You can target this model with a fire Overwatch stratagem for 0 CP, and can do so even if you have already targeted a different unit with that stratagem this turn. This model can only be targeted with this stratagem once per turn. So, that goes to say that you can double down. If you had the think tank fire off a fire Overwatch, you can fire Overwatch again with the Sporocyst somewhere, somehow, some way, for free. And it is also, I guess, important to note for this idea that you can do this on a per model basis. When stratagems like this are named and say you can do it even though somebody else does it, and you've seen this with like other things, you can have 3 Sporocysts if they all got activated on the battlefield. They can fire Overwatch to 3 units. Will it be the bee's knees? It has a potential of doing 20 wounds. Is it likely? Not at all, but it's an option in some way. So 20 wounds, and you go, man, 145 points, that's steep, especially for something that has 0 fucking movement. So once it's down, it's down. How are we getting there? Oh, my dear friend, this is a monster that has 10 wounds, which, would you look at that? Would you look at that? Would you look at that? Sorry. It is less than 12. 10 is indeed less than 12. And the funnier part is that it's the same kit, right? I think they, if we're being honest, it is quite literally the lore perspective of Tyrannocyte go, phew, and there you go. Oh, look at that, it's a Sporocyst. Oh, things came out as well, right? Like, that was the idea there. That's why it's even more interesting that it doesn't say and or, right? Well, okay, maybe not and or, because technically that's other jargon too. But it'd be nice if it said and instead of or here. Honestly, that could be the buff that the Tyrannocyte needs. But all that to say, Tyrannocyte, 3 Tyrannocytes, 3 Sporocysts. And when you look at that, because of its rule, none of it gets counted against you. So you can do that. And then still have things in reserves if you needed to. Now, you do have to be careful of rules and triple check. It's like, how many things need to start on the board? Like, how much of my army needs to be on the board? But just for a funny little thing, you can do it. And then here comes the other aspect of fire Overwatch. Why would I be firing Overwatch so damn much? You could also fire Overwatch with Hive Guard. Would you look at that? 6 models. Infantry with a wound characteristic of more than 1. Huh. Yeah, you could also, and here's the other thing that's even goofier, right? The Tyrannocyte is a dedicated transport, which means you can have 6 of these things. You can have 6 of these things. So, you could take 3 Tyrannocytes for 3 Sporocysts, and 3 Tyrannocytes for 3 6-man units of Hive Guard. The Hive Guard have defensive stance each time you target this unit with the Fire Overwatch stratagem. While resolving that stratagem, hits are scored on unmodified hit rolls of 5 up, or unmodified hit rolls of 4 up instead if this unit is within range of an objective marker. Now, the weapons themselves, again, not terribly impressive. They haven't been all edition. Another thing that would make the codex better, GW, if you're listening and you're cooking up that December data balance slate, why can't I say that today? If you're looking at another video that I've put up, or you just like, man, you made that same mistake. Yeah, I recorded these videos on the same day. Whoopsie. And I can't do it today, I guess. But the Hive Guard, Impaler Cannon, heavy indirect fire, 36 inches. 4 attacks, hitting on 4s, strength 5, AP 1, damage 1. Or the Shock Cannon, anti-vehicle 2, up 24 inches, 2 attacks, hitting on 3s, 7, 1, 3. Now, 3 damage, we take that. The profiles are T7, 3 up save, 4 wounds. That's good if we weren't talking about Hive Guard. And they do absolutely jack shit this edition. GW, let's get these points down. Kind of the same angle with the Zoanthropes, if I'm being honest. A lot of the shit in our codex costs just a little bit too much, and then we wonder why we need to bring Exocrine so many times. So yeah, the Hive Guard, if you want to do it, usually, if you put these in reserves, that would be a little bit too fucking much. But, if nothing counts, in or within, right, or on and within the Tyrannocyte, you can drop them there and fire Overwatch to your heart's delight the entire game. And hitting on 4s for Hive Guard and, well, doing it for free with the Sporocyst. Another one that I wanted to talk about that has a mean Overwatch. Barb Guns. You've heard me gush about the Barb Guns before, so I won't go on too long, but the Barb Guns have a maximum of 10 models in a unit, but they have the Barb Launcher. Blast heavy, 24 inches, D6 attacks, hitting on 4s, strength 5, AP 0, damage 1. Don't really need to worry about disruption bombardment right now because, well, if you're doing fire Overwatch, it's probably not your shooting phase. So, the Barb Guns, with all those attacks, usually has a decent Overwatch out of our codex here. And as you can see, this is a lot of, well, let's use some of the core stratagems to make our point for this madman idea. And I should also say all of this has maybe not a home, maybe a pit stop in Vanguard Onslaught, where we saw somebody like Matt Laura picking up Barb Guns with Invisible Hunter at the end of your opponent's fight phase, up to 2 Vanguard Invader units from your army or 1 Tyranids infantry unit from your army. Remove the targeted units from the battlefield and place them into strategic reserves. The targeted units must be more than 3 inches away from all enemy units. We've seen this idea of just putting Barb Guns in places and putting a fuck ton of shots down somewhere. Another funny thing about this, Vanguard Onslaught we know is for Vanguard Invaders. And would you look at who's a Vanguard Invader? Yeah, the Tyrannocyte. Now, you don't get jack shit for anything else, but there is another funny thing that you can do that kind of got removed if we were to go the Vanguard Onslaught route of this stupid ass idea. Well, the change to Surprise Assault made it so that you have to target units to trigger that Battle Shock test. And if you have a Vanguard Invader, right, that can shoot, you can get that shock test off without really dedicating it to somewhere else. Because the other options for Vanguard Invaders with guns are the Winged Hive Tyrant, where, and now, thanks to the Synapse change, you probably don't want to put one of the cannons on instead of just the whip. So, probably not that one. The Winged Tyranid Prime does not have a ranged weapon, but if you put on the ranged melee warriors, you can do that. The Gargoyles, 18 inches for their weapon, so not too far on where you want to trigger that if you're trying to do something cheeky. The Harpy and Hive Crone have the weapons, And I'm still debating if I'm making that video for highlighting them on this one yet. We'll see. And the other option, I guess the Trigon is an option as well. But Raveners can uppy downy and other places to do that with their thoracic bioweapon. Yeah, it's looking bleak. At least the Tyrannocyte has a 24-inch weapon to do it and being a Vanguard invader if you just want to do something with the battle shock test. However, I did say the Sporocyst has been seen within assimilation swarm. Why? From what I understood of it, and there's been a couple of people, which was funny, is that, well, if something dies nearby when a Tyranid unit from your army is destroyed, one, you can pretty much just trigger your regen into another direction. So if they kill a mucilage spore, you can reclaim biomass. And it's like, alright, I guess. If that strat is the bee's knees for 1 CP, it could be. Just have a harvester nearby these mucilage spores that you're putting down. However, I would also like to highlight a thing that I've alluded to before. You can regen 1 destroyed infantry model with assimilation swarm. And if that infantry model is a Hive Guard that has 4 wounds, T7, it's kind of fucking annoying to get rid of. We've seen it with the Tyrant Guard, in which that's why people do that spam there, but just saying, it's something you could do to annoy the populace, as well as, if I've talked about several times, I like the think tank within assimilation swarm because zoanthropes are also infantry, so you can bring up a zoanthrope where you already have a psychophage giving feel no pains. The zoanthropes are giving invulnerable saves. You just need regen past that, and you could even bring, as I've talked about in another video, venomthropes for the added stealth to something like the Hive Guard. If you attach the zoanthropes to the Neurotyrant, you lose it. But if you want to go old school and just fit zoanthropes into the Tyrannocyte, there's your play as well there. So this is just something goofy you can do, not necessarily to be taken seriously. If you do take it seriously and find that you are having fantastic results, please let me know. I don't have that much faith in it, but yeah, there's some shenanigans afoot that can be done with fire overwatching the entire board. So yeah, if you like the video, like it. Got a comment for me, comment, and until next time, peace out, my monstrosities.